I know how you feel. I understand it.
So what if I do? What if I don't follow your line?
You want to go prove something, and that's the way we like it. You got it better than us.
Every week's going to be a fight.
Fight for your brother next to you.
When you want respect and you want to earn respect, you strike them, and you strike them, and you strike them.
Job's not finished. Go blue.
Single Saturday in college football seems to have a theme. This Saturday was Statement Saturday because Michigan made a statement that was absolutely resounding to the college football world. The question is, by beating Ohio State the way they did, what's it mean to the College Football Playoff Committee? That is the answer we now have. It's Rankings Reaction presented by Cheez-It.
Sometimes Fitz starts these shows off amazing.
Thank you. You know what? Like,
that was so good.
You know what? It's all like I watch you on Countdown to Game Day. I watch Reese, like Reese Davis. Like, let me just wax for a second. Like,
100%.
Reese doesn't write any of his stuff. Like, he just sits there, knows it, and has it, and then you watch him work, and you're like, my God, he's a professional.
Are you saying I'm almost like Reese?
Sure. She's Christine Williamson. I am saying that. And Gary Striewski wearing a Letterman jacket to Rankings Reaction.
I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't even know why I'm here. But this is a career highlight because I'm like, man, I want to be part of that Cheez-It show one time. They just have a good time, chop it up, and eat Cheez-Its.
And
that's
sit
exactly
on a couch.
what I get to do for the next hour. Don't expect much else.
I never do.
Thank you for being here.
Gary, by the way, Superstar Sports Center anchor, also host of a great show called The Kickoff on Fridays.
That show rocks.
His co-host, dashingly good looking. Also, AJ McCarron going to join us today.
Good duo.
Boo Corrigan going to join us, the committee chair. We'll ask him a bunch of questions. Heather Dinich, can I tell you guys a Heather Dinich story? All right.
Please, I love
On
this.
Saturday, I'm
sure.
sitting here, I'm getting ready for the show with AJ, and it's early in the Oregon game. Oregon's up 18 on Oregon State. And I text Heather. I'm like, are you somewhere where I can ask you a question? She said, yeah. So I show up in the green room. She's got all the smart people around her. And I'm like, why not a case for Oregon to make it to the college football playoff if they win out? And she's like, well, I don't think so. So I laid out all the research I'd done that afternoon. And she was like, I hadn't thought of it. And you're right. She's like, I'm going to rewrite part of this. You are right. Oregon has a path. I felt so good about it. I even said in the room, I was like, look, I don't care what happens the rest of the day. I have convinced Heather Dinich of something. About 20 minutes later, Oregon folded, blew a massive lead. It all went to you-know-what, and she sent me a text and was like, we jinxed it. But still, it was great. Like, I got that moment where I was like, I said something to Heather. Like, I felt like I was smart for a second.
I love that for you.
Thank you.
Because that's a
I
hard
have
thing
faith
to
in you
do.
the entire time.
Thank you so much. I didn't have faith in Oregon. I do have faith in the committee. They've told us who the top 6 are. We're going to do this a little different. Sometimes we go 1 to 6. This time we're going 6 to 1 so you can get all the drama out of the way early. Alabama in at number 6.
Wow.
2 points. It's a Southernism. Ohio State drops 3 after
Bama's
getting
up
their
1.
butts.
I mean, all the way out.
USC hops up 2 spots to number 4.
We love that.
TCU still undefeated, moves up 1 to 3.
Can I get a hell yeah, brother?
Michigan, after maybe the most convincing win of the season,
Hell
moves up
yeah,
1.
brother.
And Georgia stays where they've been for most of this process. So I want to start here, guys. There's a lot of places to go. I want to start with Ohio State. They dropped 3 after getting just thwacked. Now, is that enough? Was that enough of a drop?
I think yes, because it was Michigan. Well, it's tough because it was obviously pretty much a blowout, right? And we said that's one of our what do we call them, commandments?
Yeah.
That you can't get blown out, right? The fact that they dropped that much, and these were when we were going into this game, we were like, these 2 teams haven't played anybody. This will show us a lot about these 2 teams. And we talked about what would happen if one of the teams blew out another team. So I'm actually surprised, especially because we didn't really know where both of these teams were before they actually played one another. Like, this was the big game that was supposed to show us. But I mean, Ohio State doesn't have necessarily a path into the playoff, right? It's over. So, I mean, I don't know. I think it's interesting.
Is it? I mean, if you're an Ohio State fan, you're looking at it and saying, well, if TCU loses, if USC loses.
Hey, you tell us, man. You made Heather Dinich rewrite her story. I don't know. Listen,
look,
there's a lot of paths.
Right twice.
I thought it was an appropriate drop out of the top 4, and to maybe the committee's point and everybody else's point, who were kind of doing a deep dive into the paths. It's like, okay, fine, you're out, but you're not.
But they don't think about the path, remember?
But
That's
you're
something
not.
that they don't look ahead. They're only looking at that week.
Oh, what is it about far left on this couch that gives like skepticism?
I know.
The minute, like,
Anytime you say what the committee's rules are.
That's like when you you testify in court. You're like, I'm not gonna lie, but like it's your homie, so like you're definitely gonna lie for the homie. That's what they say, but everybody knows that you can see stuff out of the periphery. And listen, I'm not going to court anytime soon. All I'm saying is Ohio State, they get the benefit of the doubt, and I don't think a lot of teams are able to get that, but Ohio State does. But I think it was kind of like a steady matriculation. Like, they didn't really beat Maryland. They weren't impressive against Northwestern, and then they got smoked by Michigan.
Where would they have gone? Okay,
I
they're
guess.
above a 2-loss Alabama. They're above Tennessee. Like, these teams literally had losses that they shouldn't have had at the beginning of the season. At least Ohio State and Michigan were both in the top 4.
I think that's fair. The only argument I would make is that Michigan went into Ohio State without their best player. Blake
Hell
Corum.
yeah.
Yeah.
Blake played, I think, 3 snaps, had 2 carries, so he was a non-factor in this game. Stats and info, I'll credit with a great nugget that J.J. McCarthy came into this game with a wildly lower completion percentage and passer rating against man versus what he does for zone.
Yeah.
Ohio State ran a bunch of man instead of zone, and it felt like they tripped themselves up. So it was the worst effort we've seen from Ohio State all year. It made J.J. McCarthy look like a golden god throwing the wide open guys.
I know, it was wild.
It was Ryan Day's worst moment and Jim Harbaugh's best moment all at once. So I wouldn't have had a hard time if they free fell. I honestly wouldn't, because they haven't played anybody.
What's free fall? Like out of the top
drop
6?
significantly. But my thing is, I
wouldn't
feel like we have a little bit,
Wow.
let's say this game was like 3 weeks ago, right? And we had Alabama losing to random people. We had Tennessee, obviously, with that loss against South Carolina. Like, what would we have thought in that moment if it was a Michigan team that beat Ohio State then, and then they went on to play other teams and then beat those teams? You know what I mean? So I feel like it's a recency bias thing, which we know, obviously, when we think about it, we look at the whole entire thing, but like the later games matter more than the earlier games. But I feel like if this was an earlier game, we wouldn't have been putting as much weight on it.
That's probably fair. And I think you and I have talked a lot this year about the committee and the fact that I think this is a committee that's very logical. And in some ways, it's safe and easy to do some things. Putting USC at 4 made a ton of sense in this situation because USC, obviously, they control their own destiny. USC's either going to play their way in or out of this thing, right? So, yes, they do, but USC's defense has at times been atrocious this year. Like, you got the Heisman winner.
Looking like Ohio State's defense?
I mean,
yeah.
That's
but
fair.
USC's offense can put them up, right?
I mean, that's totally fair.
Yeah.
And I think, there have been fatal flaws to each of the 4 teams most weeks. I wouldn't have had a problem with Ohio State free falling. I also wouldn't have had a problem with Michigan going up to number 1. I have no problem with USC being where they are now because as you see the highlights here, like, let's just be real. They have that guy. Like, Caleb has played so incredibly well.
I think it took too long. And on our other show, I've been kind of rolling with USC from the early onset, just because we knew what Lincoln Riley was going to bring to them. Caleb Williams, Jordan Addison, all of that stuff. Their one loss at Utah when Cam Rising had like the game of his life.
Yeah.
5 touchdowns and they only lost by 1 point, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's just USC getting buried on the West Coast, but we've been high on them for a long time. I think it took far too long for them to crack a top 4. I mean, of course, there's so many scenarios in which you say, Gary, it doesn't make sense for them to be in the top 4 now, but they're obviously in when it matters. So I'm with that.
Do we have any issue with Alabama being ahead of Tennessee?
No.
I mean,
Because of all
Tennessee
the things.
beat them, though.
Yeah, I think the head-to-head, but also if you look at the head-to-head, the team looked different when they were playing too, right? You don't have
Fair
their
point.
quarterback anymore. You don't have Hendon Hooker anymore. So it's like it's not the same team. So the committee, it's a human committee. It's not a computer. They know those things. So I feel like that makes sense.
Yeah, it's just it would be a wasted for what, right? Like Hendon Hooker, he's not there. So you put him in front of Alabama for what?
Yeah.
You know, this Tennessee team's nowhere near what they were when they beat Bama just a couple of weeks ago.
So what do we make of TCU then? Because that's the one team we haven't talked about in this top 7 at all.
Love them.
TCU's at number 3. I keep saying, like, maybe they made a deal with the devil. I don't know. Maybe they got a voodoo doll, but all they do is win. And, AJ McCarron, who will join us a little later and has sat in that seat most of the season, has been really high on Texas if they were able to take on TCU. That's not the way it worked out. They get Kansas State. Like, I think TCU has answered whatever the questions are. And by the way, they've done it in a pretty dynamic way the last few weeks.
I mean, I think that we can thank partially here, I don't know, you guys tell me if I'm tripping, Cincinnati walked so TCU could run, right? It's like one of those outside teams. I know that they are inside.
The Big 12.
No, listen. I know they're in a Power 5 conference, but it's one of those teams that nationally we just simply don't pay attention to until they're 9-0, until they're 10-0, until they're playing for the Big 12 championship game. So I think because we put so much attention on the unusual suspects the last couple of years, it makes it easier for us to be like, yeah, TCU should be in there. No
but we're
problem.
so quick to say that if TCU gets one loss in the Big 12, every single week we said if they lose one game, and it doesn't even matter how they lose the game, that they're out. So I feel like
same with Ohio State, though. This is what we just saw happen.
But I think the conversation around Ohio State was like, if this Michigan-Ohio State game is good, should both teams, should we have two Big Ten teams in the CFP? So I feel like we have. But I feel like the same thing happened with Cincinnati, right? It was like, if you guys lose anything, we don't want you here.
Facts.
You got to go. So that's a kind of good comparison, but I think it being a Power 5 conference that we need to put a little bit more respect on TCU's name.
Can we also acknowledge that Gary came dressed like he's the kicker for TCU?
Oh, yeah, y'all didn't know
He
that
did
I
that on
was,
purpose.
y'all didn't know I was
You
from
getting
Fort
like
Worth?
Scally out there? You getting got an NIL deal out there kicking?
Who knew?
Yeah, we'll talk about it later.
Who knew?
But it does get a little interesting because, look, I'm going to presume that LSU doesn't even stand a chance for Georgia. Let me run chalk for a second.
Okay.
Georgia kills LSU, right? Michigan reminds us all that they need to get rid of the divisions because nobody wants to see Purdue in. So you take those two out. Let's just say TCU loses to K-State in the Big 12 championship game. USC loses to Utah for the second time this year. Do we end up with Georgia, Michigan, Ohio State, and Alabama?
But see, this is why I say the thing about recency bias. Obviously, if TCU had lost to K-State earlier in the season, they wouldn't be in this situation. But let's just say both of these teams were playing in the Big 12 championship with TCU having lost to them before, and then TCU beats Kansas State in the Big 12 championship. Would that team be in the CFP? So I feel like, once again, TCU taking one out in a conference championship, that they beat that team earlier in the year by 10 points. Are we just like, okay, you lost one game, you got to go?
Yeah, no, you're and what's Heather always say? If you're not playing, you're praying.
Yeah.
Right? Like, Alabama and Ohio State don't get another shot at any sort of, chance to put something on tape to get this stink out for Ohio State of the loss for Alabama to get one more sort of notch in your belt.
Yeah, I don't really subscribe to the fact of punishing a team because they earned the right to play in a conference championship because they
against another top 10
because they
team.
beat
That's
everybody
the other thing
else,
too.
and then if they lose, reward the team that didn't earn the right to play
in a conference championship. Right. So you're looking at teams, like I said, it's a top 10 team. Kansas State is a top 10 team. We haven't looked at it yet, but that's the case, right? You're losing in a conference championship against a team that you already played earlier in their season, but if you lose that game, hey, why don't we get Ohio State in, who just got killed by Michigan?
I love what you just said because you've always been the smartest one at pointing this out on this show. Sometimes you got to look at where the committee ranks everybody else to figure out what's ahead of them, what's the runway look like. And a top 10 matchup means a lot. One thing we know is that Boo Corrigan is absolutely incredibly kind to give us time and hang out with us most weeks on this show. We're going to hang out with him now. We'll get some insight from the CFP committee chair. Boo, always appreciate your time. You said earlier in the year that Georgia was clearly the number one team to the committee. After what Michigan did to Ohio State, was there less gap between 1 and 2 than in the past?
We're going to go week by week, right? And everything's going to build on everything that occurs during the season. Obviously, a hugely impressive win by Michigan to go down to Ohio State, to get that win. But, again, Georgia didn't do anything to dissuade the committee with their win over Georgia Tech. Again, 4-0 against teams that are ranked. Michigan's 2-0 against teams that are ranked. Really good football teams. Congratulations to Coach Smart and Coach Harbaugh on their seasons.
So I do want to ask you, as a follow-up to that, when you look at the rankings, some seasons we've seen teams win, but other teams win more convincingly. And like Fitz said, teams jump other teams. Has there been any consideration this season to shuffle teams that haven't necessarily lost around, especially at the top?
Yeah, it's something that we look at every week when we come in. We really want to make sure that we talk about a clean sheet every week, right? And coming in here and making sure that we're making the right decisions based on the latest information that we have. And while it may not look like there's a lot of shuffling, there's a whole lot of conversation going on about everything, about each team individually and how they perform that week, as well as with their total body of work. It's not something that we look, hey, let's shuffle everything this week, or let's not shuffle everything this week. We try to look at it on a week-by-week basis and make sure that we're making the right decisions for the top 25.
So, Boo, nobody had a better week than Michigan, and you said there's a lot of conversation as it relates to the top 4 teams. How much conversation was had specifically with them and maybe giving them the top spot?
There's always conversation about it, right? We want to make sure at the end of it, that we sit down and we're looking at everything. And we're looking not only with our eyes, but we're looking statistically on where we are. We're looking at strength of schedule. We're looking at their non-conference opponents. Obviously, the Oregon game early in the year was a great non-conference win for Georgia. To win that 49-3 still plays a part in what it is. So again, we're looking at it and making sure we're trying to make the right decisions.
So you mentioned earlier, and I think it's a significant note, Michigan, at this point, Georgia 4-0, undefeated against top 25 committee teams. TCU and Michigan 2-0. But you've got a team like USC that's 3-1. How does the committee put value on a team that may be putting themselves out there more often, even if it means they have a loss against a ranked team?
Yeah, I mean, the hard part is you schedule these games so far in advance, right? And how good are those teams going to be on any given year as you're going into it? The key is to win those games, right? In the last 2 weeks with Southern Cal and the win over UCLA and the win over Notre Dame, they've got another opportunity this weekend, and we'll continue to evaluate everything.
With that clarity, though, I want to make sure we all understand here. The committee, when they are looking at the strength of schedule and who you're playing, you're basing that based on the opponent's full body of work. So if a team, for example, plays somebody that's ranked number 5 earlier this year but not currently ranked, you're not taking that number 5 from earlier into account. You're looking at where all of those teams lie currently, correct?
Over the body of work, but again, we'll go back to how big that win was at the time and make sure that we're evaluating everything on a case-by-case basis. And make sure that we understand, what it is certainly in our rankings for the last 4 weeks, and make sure that we're looking at everything that goes into it. And teams that have been up and down, maybe there's injuries on some of those teams, everything else, and make sure that we're talking through everything to have the best, to ultimately have the best rankings.
Boo, we appreciate your time every week, my friend. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. Best of luck. We'll see you again in just a few days this time.
All right, look forward to it. Thanks.
By the way, I hammer this every week because it's a different audience. It is not easy to stand up in front of a group of people. My constant analogy is get 13 of your closest friends in one room and ask them what the best pizza is in town. And watch that argument just absolutely erupt, and then ask somebody else to stand in and defend what everybody else voted on. I do not envy the committee chair.
You guys get some important people on this show.
Well, that's Gary Striewski at the top of the list. Also incredibly important, Heather Dinich.
Segue.
Look at that.
Segue.
Professionals.
Look, AJ's not on the show, but he's going to beat me up if I don't get a Bama question. And Bama still got a shot at the playoff?
That's why AJ's not on the show, because he's so sad. Look, they need absolute chaos. At number 6 tonight, they are what I would classify as a long shot. They not only do they need TCU to lose, I think they need USC to lose. They need them both to lose convincingly. The fact that Ohio State is sitting there at number 5 gives them the edge over Alabama. But one thing I thought was really interesting, Boo Corrigan said on our teleconference before he hopped on with you guys, was that anything can change on the final weekend. So even though Alabama and Ohio State are not playing, I don't know. I'm a little bit confused about the answer there, because logically you would think that their positions are set, but he sort of left the door open.
Are you at all surprised, after what we saw out of Ohio State and Michigan, that Michigan did not take the top spot this week?
No, I wasn't surprised. I had Georgia number 1. I told Feinbaum earlier today I thought they would stick with Georgia at number 1, but I thought they would at least consider Michigan for that spot, which they did. Michigan goes on the road to Columbus. They get the best win in the country, and quite frankly, Georgia's wins have been devalued, but you saw what Ohio State did, particularly in the fourth quarter. Michigan did in the fourth quarter to those guys. And Corrigan talked about the injury to Blake Corbin. Oh my gosh, I can't talk today. Blake Corbin
Long day,
and Donovan Edwards coming in. It is. It's been a really long day. And he talked about that, but at the end of the day, Georgia's wins, 4 wins against top 25 teams, are what kept the Bulldogs there.
Heather, quick question. I don't know if you caught the story about Fitzy trying to convince you of Oregon's path.
I wasted so much
into
of your time.
the college football playoff. And my question was, did you just agree to change your story so that way Fitz would leave you alone?
I disagree, yes. Sure, whatever you say, yes. No, but he jinxed them. I texted him, too, as you were on TV. Jinx.
Yeah, no, she's right. Like, whatever shot we had there, I absolutely lost. It's my fault, Oregon.
And an actual question, because I kind of made the analogy, and maybe I got to hammer it home, understanding that TCU, of course, is a Power 5 team. Is there any correlation between a team that's not a usual suspect, and I think we could all admit that TCU isn't, even though they've had great success on the national stage, them allowing themselves to get into the CFP because of a team like Cincinnati making so much waves last season? And hey, if Cincinnati can get in, TCU deserves a top 4 spot.
No, I'm going to respectfully disagree with that angle, only because TCU this season has had more impressive wins than Cincinnati would have last year. Remember last year, Cincinnati was hanging on to that win against Notre Dame. They had to be absolutely perfect. Notre Dame had to be perfect. This is a TCU team that has continued to find ways to win. Corrigan talked about how the defense has improved throughout the entire season. K-State is a team they beat during the regular season, and that's a top 10 team right now. So at number 3, I think TCU has some margin for error if they're not able to win that Big 12 title.
Heather, in a year like this that has been so strange, that's the only way I can describe it, do you think that this year makes the case for or against playoff expansion?
As all of that is underway right now in another story bubbling on the side, I'll put it this way. First of all, playoff expansion, everyone agrees unanimously who's in charge of making that decision that it's better for the sport because there's more participation. Of course, there's $450 million on the table if they can get it done by 2024. But I will tell you that this year is a perfect example of why the commissioners did it the way they did it and said 4 best and did not guarantee conference champions an automatic spot. That's because if they would have done that, you're looking at a 2 or a 3-loss ACC champ. There's a possibility you could have a 3-loss Utah win, a 3-loss K-State win. My God, Purdue could win the Big Ten. And those are your playoff teams. And do you want to see that? I'll let you answer that question. But that's why this
I do not.
No.
Yeah, that's why this is the way it is right now. And when you open the door to all of those teams, those conversations, and those possibilities.
I want to ask, okay, so when G-Money was asking about TCU and usual suspects and stuff like that, and you mentioned the fact that if TCU loses the Big 12 championship, that they would most likely drop out of the top 4. What'd you say, sorry?
No,
you like that note?
I'd like the
yeah.
note on
So
that.
they'd most likely drop out of the top 4. Is that fair?
No, I didn't say that.
No,
I didn't say that.
They got a little bit more equity.
They have more leeway, you said? Or you said they don't?
They have more margin for error. Yeah, because they're number 3.
Okay, then never mind. Never mind.
Yeah. No, I think if they are to lose this game, I mean, unless it's extremely lopsided, they've still got a shot. And I think they have an even better shot if USC loses, too. Yeah. Because at some point, guys, it's by default here. Because as I mentioned, in this particular system, they're not putting a 3-loss K-State in. They're not putting a 3-loss Utah in. So you've got Georgia, you've got Michigan, and... Yes, exactly.
TBD. Okay.
This is why you're the best, Heather. We appreciate it. And this is a reminder to everybody watching that every year tells us that college football is predictable. Just look at this year. Heather, you are the best, my friend. I appreciate you hanging out with us. I won't waste any of your more of your time on Oregon today.
Thank you, guys.
All right, so, everybody's going to be fired up because we got results. So do you want to do a little social media check-in?
I love this for us. Okay, so Vol Herald
Oh, can't imagine what Vol
You
Herald
can guess
We're doing
what
it.
they're going to say something about. Says, one of the biggest crimes in college football history is ranking Alabama ahead of Tennessee in the CFP rankings. We're both 10-2, but we beat them head-to-head, and their other loss was to LSU, who we beat by 27 points, exclamation, exclamation, exclamation. Head-to-head and common opponents must matter. Just disgusting, but we talked about this already.
Yeah, and this is where I would say to Vol Herald, in an honest moment, if you had to bet your house today on a matchup between the Vols and Alabama on a neutral field, without Hendon Hooker as your quarterback, who would you bet your house on? We know the answer to that, and at some point, as much as there's most deserving, you also do have to just recognize, like, there is. I would bet I would prefer for the Vols to win that matchup.
Yeah.
I bet my house on
My
Alabama.
guy
Yeah,
just
for
needs. My guy just needs a refresher on the definition of crime. I don't think it's. I don't think it's that large out of the question because of Fitz's point.
Also, good on you, man. If that's the worst thing that's happened, like, you're living.
Seriously.
Sheltered much?
This person is clearly a Michigan fan and says,
Let's
the
see.
game just won't be the same when
yes.
the CFB playoff expands to 12 teams, and it's just about seeding. I think it's also hilarious because, like, you guys are just, like, enjoy this for 5 seconds. But anyways, the game became the game because of the all-or-nothing / Thunderdome-esque stakes. 2 men enter, 1 man leaves. Hashtag go blue.
I don't understand why expanding college football playoff has any implication or any impact on this particular game, and even to the next extent, seeding.
Because they're saying Ohio State's out.
I'll disagree with you on that because I was talking to ESPN Radio in Dayton, Ohio earlier today about this very thing. And there is a moment where right now, the way the system is built, not only did Ohio State lose, they lost their shot at a playoff. In an expanded playoff, all they lost was which seed they were going to play and who they were going to play. They're still going to the playoff.
But I will say, though, we have talked about, and we've even just talked about this, the fact that if Ohio State and Michigan played each other close, even if Ohio State lost, it wouldn't be 1 man, 2 men enter, 1 man, whatever this quote is.
I mean, who in these stadiums is like, oh man, this is the game that we're all waiting for, but then they're already looking ahead to, but man, someone's going to get screwed in the playoffs. Nobody's thinking that.
That's why I'm
the
saying
day of
they
these
have
games.
literally, they just had something great happen, and now they're like, hey,
but that's
I don't want this to expand. Yeah.
Which is what I'm saying is I don't think any expansion. I don't think they go to 18 teams. So I understand that, they'll see each other in the future potentially, and that takes some of the allure and some of the shine off of like it being 2 man enter, 1 man.
I mean, I guess
leave,
my easiest argument to that is Duke, North Carolina in college basketball.
Yeah.
We erupt every time Duke plays North Carolina.
Yeah,
And this
it's
year when
still a
they
good
played
game.
in the Final Four,
Yeah.
it was like, oh my God, Duke, North Carolina in the playoffs? Like, as much as I hear what this person's saying about the game, I would also argue that the first time you get Ohio State, Michigan for a national championship.
Exactly, that'd be lit.
Like,
especially
you just get
if
to
they
turn
have a
up
game like
twice.
this one, and then they have to play each other again in the CFP.
I mean, we've
and
seen
it's the Ohio State team that we didn't expect to come out on Saturday. Like,
we've been seeing that with Georgia and Alabama. Like, I think
Yes.
Georgia,
Yeah.
Alabama, their rivalries only become even more I hate you because of the championship
Especially
portion of
that.
it. Like,
Yeah.
I think, like, I was at the overtime, the walk-off long
you were
touchdown standing
tuning
next to Mike
Devontae
Miller Jr.
Smith?
And the confetti cannon was right behind us. Did not know that.
Oh.
Cannon went off right behind me. I swear to God, like,
you
I
bring an
tinkled a
extra-
little in my pants.
Yeah.
Like, I was like, oh my God.
at least it was a tinkle.
Yeah, that's
And not a boo-boo.
Unconfirmed.
By the way, if I ever start another band, it's going to be called Boo Boo and Tinkles at this point. But like, and then you think about the SEC. We don't even think about the SEC championship game last year because we think about the Natty that they played, right? So every
But
time
the Natty
Georgia,
had so much more weight because of how the SEC championship ended.
100%.
And it was so much better because of that. So I feel like this person is just salty that eventually Ohio State is probably going to get a shot, where this season, obviously, they're like, okay, Ohio State's out. And I think that's the only issue.
I don't even know what we're mad at anymore.
We're not mad. We're not mad.
I don't even know what we're defending
Okay,
anymore.
Dave Tibbs says, latest CFP rankings pretty much guarantee a Utah versus Penn State Rose Bowl if Utah wins, and I would not hate that at all.
That's lit.
Okay,
yeah, I'm okay with that.
right. We don't hate it either.
Yeah, I think we all agree with that. Like,
No.
Yeah.
Like that's one of those things too that, like, if we were going to get that sort of a matchup in the playoffs, we'd all be really happy with it too. We'll get to that discussion
Wait,
later.
this is actually really funny. The Orange Bloods says the CFP should choose their rankings based on resume and not be allowed to see the logo of the teams they're ranking until it's finalized. Okay.
Yo, that's kind of
But
lit.
you can't do that because you're going to be like, it's not like we don't know who the teams are.
And
when they
welcome to
walk into the
SoFi
building.
Stadium, the national championship between Holy Cross and North Dakota.
You're joking, but I'm not, because what I immediately pulled up, and we got to remember, if you think being undefeated should automatically put you in the college football playoff, where's the home for Jackson State? Like, where's the metrics for Jackson State? They're undefeated. Like, you can't just throw in the resume.
It says, oh yeah, resume. But you would have to. We would know who the teams are, because it would have been like, okay, this team just beat Alabama. Who is it?
Or they're just gonna go.
You got me. You got me.
That account wants you to be like the record, points for, points against.
Definitely.
Like just analytics, know like who you beat in the process, strength of schedule, strength of resume without any names listed. And like I said, that's cool until you put Jackson State in the playoff.
Yeah, we would literally, like you said, pull up and be like, what?
Yo, Holy Cross is turning up. Yeah.
I look forward to the day that we always then get some, like, remember a few years ago, Cincinnati, like, we're just glossing over the fact that Cincinnati got that butt kicked in the playoffs. Like, do we really want...
The blind resume game is fun for idiots like us who have to talk about stuff for an hour.
Yeah.
And we have to fill content and come up with segments. But
have
not,
to or
get to. Get to.
Thankful
But,
heart, Gary.
but not like, when you're actually playing for stakes here.
Okay, this is another tweet.
Is it when Gary goes to the solo camera, by the way, like, is it just me or does he look like he's auditioning for 90210, like a new version of 90210?
I don't know, but I'm
only because
sweating. Do
Mario
they need a salt and peppered, half Korean, half Polish guy? Because I can read.
RJ
I
Young
only see the Polish
says
part.
the United States is undefeated in World Cup play.
Hell yeah, brother.
And remains ranked behind LSU and Alabama in the CFP rankings.
It's unbelievable if you really think about it. But listen, it's a tough flight to get over here from Qatar right now. Conference championships are going on this weekend, and we are playing for a global championship right now, RJ. So stop being greedy. All right?
My God.
Red, white, and blue.
I'm still stuck on Mario
16.
Lopez over here. I got nothing. Let's bring in our other dashingly good-looking host to join us now in this conversation, AJ McCarron. AJ joining us. You're watching Rankings Reaction presented by Cheez-It. We now have a full panel here of AJ McCarron, Gary Striewski, Christine Williamson. I'm Jason Fitz. And this is a real conversation. We hinted at it a couple of times, but playoff expansion is something that we all have to look at because it's coming no matter what. Are we seeing something, guys? And I'll start with you, AJ. Are you seeing something here that makes you more or less excited about the future of the college football playoff with expansion?
I mean, I'm less excited by far. I think it takes away from the regular season games. And I think you're going to find yourself, and these teams will find themselves in some situations where it's almost like the pros, where if you're playing a team late in the season and you think you're going to have that same matchup when it comes to the playoffs, you're going to sit starters. So I think college football is going to find itself in a sticky situation when it comes to some of these matchups.
Yeah, and I think there's a real conversation there about conversation, guys, because, the first time I ever did that mock committee, one thing that I talked to the committee members at the time and the committee chair at the time was like, hey, expansion, automatic bids. Now, this has been 5 years ago, but the immediate answer was, no, we don't want automatic bids. We don't want to be an NFL system. Like, I love college football. What I love is that tomorrow morning you can turn on Get Up, you absolutely should, or Keyshawn, J. Will, and Max. You can turn on our main flagship shows in the morning. They're going to be talking about college football because a panel decided who the top teams are. If it's an automatic bid world, I don't know how that discussion starts. Like, everyone's going to wait. Like, if you're greeny, do you really care about whether or not we're going to, like, are you looking at the list saying, oh, but the committee thinks this? That makes a conversation. If you're just waiting to see who wins the ACC, you don't need to talk about it until December.
I mean, it depends, I think, because there are weeks in which you're like, okay, who's going to be in the Big 12 championship? Who's going to be in the Big 12 championship? Who's going to be in the Big 10 championship and stuff like that? And I feel like it still matters, but I think we're just uncomfy because, as you mentioned, Fitz, when we first started talking about the CFP in general and it was 4 teams, everybody was like, 4 teams is not enough. But now we've been doing it since 2014, so it's like, okay, no, we're used to this. And now the idea of expansion makes people uncomfortable because they know that we're going to get teams. We've seen it in the CFP where one blows number 4 out, right? So I feel like that's the biggest thing is like people are just uncomfortable with it. But I feel like we're going to figure out a way to adjust. We do this every college basketball season.
I'm with you, Christine, but the biggest thing is think of how many teams are undefeated this year, or we knew weeks ago that they were going to be in their conference championship. So if they already know that they're going to be in their conference championship, and say you have a lower ranked team that, or like a Tennessee, that they already know, hey, or Alabama, they already know they're going to be in the top 12. Like, then why play anybody the last game or 2 games of the year? Like, even if you lose, say it's 1 game, like if they were to lose 1 game at the end of the season, then, oh, well, it doesn't really matter because they're still going to be in the top 12. I mean, for Ohio State right there.
You got a really good point, because there's a lot of smart people on those campuses who can do the forecasting and be like, all right, here's what lies ahead of us in the next couple of schedules, and they can throw it in the algorithm 100 million different ways and be like, yeah, there's a 99.99% probability if we lose the next 2 games, we're still going to be in it, so we can sit these guys. The conversation for this, as it's presently constructed, has already sailed, though, because it's 2022 and all these conference championships and, you know, you're the 1 seed in this Power 5 conference. In 2024, that's all changing, right? 12 teams seems like way too much for me, so I'm a little medium excited as it relates to that. But, you know, you got SC, UCLA headed to the Big Ten. You don't know who's going to be joining the SEC. We're going to have 2 monster conferences, and then it's like, all right, well, are we going to do the automatic bidding? Are we just going to go top 6 here, top 6 there? There's so many variables at stake here.
As it stands right now, the top 4 conference champions will all get – conference champion would get a bye. If I've read all of this correctly, the top 4 conference champions will get a bye, which means, for example, this weekend, if LSU does the unthinkable, a 3-loss LSU team is in the playoffs with a bye. So the top 4 ranked conference champions get a bye. Then the next 2 conference champions.
And there was talks, Fitz, of it expanding to 6.
Well, all 6 will get in
and
by the model I read.
12-team format.
In the 12-team format.
Yeah.
So the top 4 get a bye. The next 2 are going to play in the first round with 6 at-larges that are the 6 highest-ranked teams by the committee or whatever going in. So this weekend, based on where we are right now, if I've done the math right, forgive me, Twitter will tell me if I haven't. But right now we would have Tulane or UCF, whoever wins that conference, at Ohio State. You'd have Utah at Alabama, Kansas State at Tennessee, and Clemson at Penn State. Those would be your first-round matchups because Georgia, Michigan, TCU, USC get a bye. In that situation, some of that, like, the chance to see Clemson take on Penn State in a playoff game, that sounds kind of cool, being at Happy Valley. Like, that would be kind of cool.
Yeah.
Is Kansas State at Tennessee with a beat-up Tennessee team? Like, are we really... Like, are we throwing ourselves over logs to get to that? I don't know.
I mean, but
like,
okay, let's just take the Hendon Hooker situation out of it. They were losing to South Carolina before he even got injured. So let's just say he's healthy. Like, I mean, I feel like the only issue is the fact that Hendon Hooker isn't playing, but they would have been in that same position even if Hendon Hooker was still playing. You know what I mean? So it's like...
Right. The only thing that changes with him is if they beat Kansas State by 100 or if they only beat them by 50.
Right. Okay, that's fair. I mean, we're going to get a lot of blowouts, to AJ's point. Like, we're going to get a lot of, like, Ohio State versus either UCF or Tulane.
Immediately no.
Like, you're having by the second quarter. You don't need to watch
yeah. But this is the thing. We get, obviously, it's now 12 versus 4, but we get games where teams are blowing people out when it's 1 versus 4. Like, I don't think it necessarily changes anything that significantly except for you just get less blowouts.
And it will, in fact, like, right now we have a bunch of bowl games. And this is all, every year people yell and scream about the bowl games. And I say the same thing every year. A lot of the kids that play in these bowl games enjoy it, so who cares? If they enjoy it, let them enjoy it. B, I also look at it and say, like, what else was going to be on in December, like on a Wednesday at 3 in the afternoon, right? So, like, I think that this replaces some of those bowl games with matchups that are more meaningful. So I can find both sides. AJ, we're going to get you back in a little bit. In the meantime, get well. AJ's a little under the weather. We got to make sure that we keep him in a box where he doesn't get anybody sick. But we'll get you back in just a couple minutes, my friend.
Sounds good. See ya.
Conference championships matter. That should be huge.
I guess you could throw them into discussion because of the narrow loss.
Who did all these teams play early in the season?
In college football, the goal isn't just to have a number next to your name. You do everything you can to shrink that digit to as small as it can be.
Caleb Williams, it's a highlight reel tonight.
The tinier that number becomes, so does the distance between a team and its gridiron glory. play, every yard, every victory matters.
They will not catch Donovan Edwards. He will score. Oh, my goodness. It's time.
It is addition with the ultimate goal of subtraction. From 25 to 1. Welcome to the latest solution in college football's total sum game. Welcome to the Top 25 rankings.
In theory, Champ Week is about seeing the best of the best, right? So why don't we, as a group, go back and look at some of the best finishes from college football this season? Gary, you in for this?
You look so excited.
I would love for you guys to take a journey with me all the way back to week 1.
Oh, we're going to start at number 5 with week 1? That's what we're doing here?
I think so. What is this? A top 10 list? Top 5 list?
Top 5.
I'm in on this.
We're at 5.
Oh, no!
It's a blocked extra point. It should have won the game instead, or should have tied the game instead. We get the big win, the big upset. By the way, how much different do we see the whole season based on that?
I know.
This had massive ramifications because LSU rattled off, 7, 8 wins in a row after this? They would have been in that top 4, the lion's share of the season, had they just made that.
You don't think about it until you actually realize where the season went.
Nuts.
And that's number 5. This one, number 4, also involves LSU, but it's LSU with a familiar foe. Look at this one. Jaden Daniels going on outside, looking for it. Yep.
Yeet.
Oh, look at that. Overtime stunner for Alabama taking the loss.
I mean, Alabama just isn't Alabama. And this was one of the realizations that we had in this game, that this team just isn't how they usually are.
God, look at the scene in Death Valley after that. We knew it was going to be absolutely bananas for Alabama to come out of there with the win under the lights in Death Valley. And that was Daniels' coming out party, so to speak, right? Because he had not seen that competition at Arizona State where he transferred from. So even that stage for him is something that he'll probably coin as the best moment in his football career.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. Now,
right?
As we move to number 3 on the list, I'm going to eat Cheez-Its because we had a bit of an argument about this one. I thought it belonged higher.
I had to fight you guys on this one a little bit.
Should have been 2.
But here's the thing. Baylor, TCU. And it came down to the literal last play of the game. It's not easy to go up to Waco and win this interstate rivalry.
Look at this.
And to keep the Horned Frogs in the top 4, which we know they're now. Tick, 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 tick. Tick, 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 tick.
It is
3, 2, 1, game. That's going into Baylor's house to set up a date in the Big 12 championship game to knock off last year's Big 12 champion and effectively book your ticket while simultaneously ending theirs.
Yeah,
running the football with no timeouts left to get a couple extra yards is big kick energy. That's all I have to say about that.
It is. I mean, you're not wrong.
Never in my life.
You're not wrong.
Never in my life.
I can't tell you how many times I just said that in my head just to make sure I wouldn't say it the wrong way because I like working for Mickey Mouse.
Oh my goodness. This is how I'm going to say it. This is how I'm going to say it.
Okay, this is.
Oh, yeah, I had to fight you guys on this one, too.
What? Yeah, I was going to say, Gary, you do this one because you wanted this at number 2 so bad.
Yeah, okay, App State? Are you kidding me? The walk-off Hail Mary win?
I almost wanted this one at number 5, but go for it.
That's unbelievable. I can't believe you guys are going to disrespect the Fighting Chase Bryces like that. A walk-off win, you guys were there. Game day, countdown to game day. Like, everything that led up to this moment started at 4 o'clock in the morning when game day was there and you guys were in freaking Boone, North Carolina. And then the scene that played out afterwards in the middle of the town, you guys disrupted traffic. I saw you in there raving with the
I mean, I think the thing that was crazy about this one, though, is the fact that we don't feel like they should have been in that situation in the first place, right?
Also, like all that,
off a major
I don't remember any of that.
All that context is you get to the top of the list.
No, you have to give context. I mean, I don't remember anything in that game except that play. Exactly. And neither do any of those players or fans in the stadium.
All right, we'll always remember the top play at this list.
Okay, this is great.
Absolute best of the best. Alabama
you won't remember it like me, though, because I was afraid. When this happened, I knew that they were going to storm the field, and I was so scared that I was going to die, basically.
I mean, I'm just saying, I was sitting next to AJ McCarron on her show live.
Oh, yeah.
I thought I might die too.
Yeah, no, seriously. I remember in that moment, we were standing right on the Tennessee sideline, and I was like, it's about to go down. So that's what I was thinking about in that moment, but it was pure magic.
That was a whole movie.
Yeah.
The goalposts ending up in the river.
Yeah.
That was insane.
How they took down the goalpost.
Yeah, that was awesome. And they're like directionally challenged. They couldn't go to like the exits.
Right.
All right. Speaking of exits, Gary's going to exit.
Oh,
We're going to keep the show going.
Right.
I do want to remind everybody,
All right.
today is Giving Tuesday, a global day of giving. And it's also the start of ESPN's V Week, when we continue Jim Valvano's fight against cancer. You can make a difference today by supporting cancer research, which is needed now more than ever. If you're able, give now at v.org/donate. That's v.org/donate. 100% of your donation goes to cancer research. By now, you know the drill. Saturdays, we're awarding one lucky fan on site a countdown to game day with the illustrious Cheeziest Chain. Now, this week, it was Ryan in Columbus. I'm going to call a conspiracy theory here, though, Christine, because I'm looking at a picture of Ryan in all of his Michigan gear, and I'm thinking about the fact that the producer of your show, our good buddy Chris Colon, big Michigan fan.
I didn't think about that, but I also think that Colon wasn't the one who chose him.
Oh, okay.
I think it was Harry Lyles. If that's the case, then it's not, your conspiracy theory doesn't work, but he was there since 2 a.m.
Okay.
Around all those Ohio State fans.
I respect that. I still think that Cologne was greasing somebody's pocket. In the meantime, we also on Rankings Reaction are honored to have the chain with us, and let's see who's feeling the cheesiest this week. We do this every week. The winner of this week's Cheesiest Chain, presented by Cheez-It. I get to pull it out. I have to make sure that everything's good. I would usually walk all over the place and I've had it several weeks, but no, it's been taken from me in the most dramatic of ways, too. Christine Williamson, you are the winner, and it came down, y'all, to the tiebreaker for the number of points. All right, AJ guessed 48 points.
Because did we guess all the same teams last week?
Every one of us guessed the same teams, and AJ went 48 points. Christine went 50 points. Total 51. Christine, fully psychic, able to get the win. How's it feel to have the bling bling all over you?
I am psychic. Thank you for that. I just let you guys win the other weeks, and I knew that this was the week that I had to win, so I decided to pull out my psychic powers, as you mentioned.
Well, I've won it twice now. AJ, you've won it. Has AJ twice?
One time.
Once.
Okay.
I've been beaten 2 weeks in a row by the points. So
I'm not gonna lie, AJ, super competitive. Not to anybody's surprise. He was in studio. We thought he had it. He was like, yeah, and then we realized he didn't have it. And he was, it was hard. All right, let's move on to this week, and we're gonna do the obvious here. Let's pick the conference championship games that we'll be watching all weekend. We'll start with the Pac-12 championship game. I got USC. Christine?
USC.
Okay.
100%.
AJ?
USC.
Nobody thinks Utah can do it twice?
No.
I think Utah can, because they usually play big for big games. But I'm going to take USC.
But they won by 1 point. It's hard to beat a team twice. We've talked about that before, so.
Yeah, and by the way Caleb Williams is playing right now,
exactly.
It's a delight. All right, Big 12 championship. Kansas State, TCU. I got TCU. Christine?
TCU.
Oh, my God. AJ?
TCU.
Is this just because we're all convinced that they're kissed by the football gods this year, or is this like, are we just all bought in now?
I feel like that's a hope, right?
I don't think Kansas State's good enough.
That's fair. All right, I think we're all going to agree on the SEC championship. Like, to me, there's just no.
Wouldn't it be straight chaos if it wasn't Georgia though? That would be wild. But I'm going Georgia.
Yeah, I mean it's a home game for them in the SEC championship game. Like AJ feels like it's Georgia, right?
Oh, yeah, 1,000%. If Georgia does not win this game, it's the biggest upset in college football history.
Oh, wow.
I'll say this.
History of college football.
Even if Georgia is a defending national champion, let's remember last year they didn't win the SEC.
That's true.
So they want to right that wrong. And also, as we know from covering the playoff, the top overall seed gets to pick where they want that first game to be.
Yeah.
And there is a playoff game in Atlanta. So exactly. I think Georgia comes out fired up, ready for this one. All right, what about UCF Tulane?
UCF.
All right, I also have UCF. AJ, who you got in this one?
Tulane, baby.
Oh, Oh, there's our difference.
Oh my
we
gosh.
have our big difference maker. What's your level of confidence in this one, AJ?
I love it. They played at UCF last time. UCF went up, I think, 17-0 or 17-3, and then Tulane fought its way back. I don't see UCF going up early in this game, and it's at Tulane, so I think they make a big run at it.
I think you're forgetting what all those invisible imaginary championships do to a culture. I'm kidding. Don't at me. All right, Big Ten championship. Purdue versus Michigan. Like, really, we're doing this? Michigan's going to kill them, right?
This is very obvious. It's Michigan.
Blowout.
This is a reminder that the Big Ten needs to get on the tide of getting rid of all the divisions and just give us the best two teams in the championship game. Because, A, this game isn't going to be a game. And, B, if it is and we're all shocked, nobody wants to see Purdue out there repping the Big Ten. Like, it's just nobody.
That'd be weird.
All right, ACC championship. Christine, do we even have to add? Like, I'm going North Carolina. I'm going North Carolina.
Don't ask me because you already know the answer. It's Clemson.
Okay. AJ, help me here. Who you got?
Tar Heels, baby. Tar Heels. Drake May. Let's go.
This is about, Drake May. To me, I think AJ's right. It's about the amount of points that North Carolina can score.
Just because they have a quarterback that's playing well, you think?
It's pretty big in football, though, Christine.
All right, so let's talk point totals because it's come down to the tiebreaker yet again. So total points scored in Clemson versus North Carolina. Christine, what you got?
I have 75 points.
Okay, that's low scoring. All right, Christine thinks that Drake May's held in check. AJ, what you got?
What did I go with, Fitz?
I think you got 88. I think you got 88. Which, I'll be honest, I didn't know when I put mine in, and now I feel like I priced this right at you. I went 90. I think there's going to be a ton of points in this game. I went 90. Now, all of a sudden, AJ and I are going to be, watching the scoreboard as it goes.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll see how this one works. Actually, when we show you the picks here, we've got a lot of games, not a lot of games, but a couple of games we disagree on. So this thing could
I don't
all
even
come
need
down.
my points.
Yeah, no, I mean, 100%. As long as you're right, we'll see how this goes.
Yeah.
All right, we got to get you caught up on the rest of the top 25. You see there, NC State moves in, Mississippi State moves in, North Carolina free falls down 6 after their loss. UCF stays put. Notre Dame also free falls down 6 after their loss. That gets you 21 through 25.
21.
Now 23, Texas up 3. South Carolina goes all the way from unranked to 19. Tulane up 1.
Spencer
UCLA
Rattler.
up 1. Oregon,
Crazy.
Bo Nix just free falling
Dude,
down.
that's Brutes Magoots.
Oregon State gets the big win. They move up 6. LSU, after their big loss, goes down 9. Still playing for a conference championship. Florida State, Washington, and then Utah rounds it out. So that's your top.
Not for nothing, real quick. You know one team that wishes the regular season wasn't coming to an end? Florida State. They won 5 games in a row. Started the season 4-0. If it wasn't for that 3-game skid in the middle of the year, Jordan
if it wasn't for that 3-game skid, that's a big.
Yeah,
if it wasn't,
that was like back in September. Who cares?
That's like saying, you know what? If it wasn't for Tennessee and LSU, Alabama would be right up there. So you just saw, by the way, Tennessee at number 7, and we welcome back Gary Striewski. We welcome back AJ McCarron. Gentlemen, obviously, it has been. I don't think any of us saw a lot of shocking things, right? Like I don't think we've looked at this week and said, oh my God, right? So, but that being said, we always like to end the show with our one big thing. So, where do you want to start this? I'm going to peek behind the curtain. They got to tell me which one of us is going first.
I think AJ should start.
Hey, AJ, you go ahead and start. AJ, give us your one big thing.
All right. Listen, I don't want Christine giving out crazy looks. It's already starting. So,
Alabama.
You know where I'm going. Listen, I don't understand, and I understand Alabama has 2 losses, but I don't understand how you put Ohio State in front of Alabama. And the reason I say that is because Ohio State just got blown out in the Horseshoe versus a team, granted, ranked number 3, but a team that had their Heisman candidate, by far their best player, out of the game. And you had one job, and that was to, hey, do not let them throw the football. Now, make them run. If they're going to beat you, I understand backup running backs. Let them beat you, but you can't give up big plays. And their defense completely failed. Bama has 2 losses by a combined total of 4 points. Both of them on the road, playing in Neyland Stadium, night game. Top 10 team. is extremely tough to play. It's 106,000 people. They are going bonkers. And then you play another night game on the road in Death Valley, which is I think possibly the hardest place to play in college football. So
it's because they have
I just
two
don't
losses.
Understand.
AJ, that's the reason.
Yeah, but those two losses are completely different from getting blown out by 20-plus points at home.
Yes,
completely
we understand
different.
that. But let's go back to what we say about the committee and how the committee does things. The fact that Alabama is literally right behind OSU, I feel like is a good thing for Alabama. Yes, OSU just got blued out. It didn't look great. But I feel like they can't put a 2-loss Alabama team at number 5 ahead of them. They just can't.
I'm with AJ.
But like there's logic. Like what you're saying, okay, we're all looking at this and we're saying, okay, this is how it looks, blah, blah, blah. But the committee does things differently for a reason. And that, I believe, is why Alabama is behind
I'm not just saying this because I'm easily persuadable, but AJ got me thinking Bama should be back in the top 4. I mean, dude, this guy's got me thinking, man, they got an argument for number 1. Okay, not that far, but you got me, AJ. You got me thinking they should be at least 5. All right, here's my big thing.
I appreciate you, G.
Yeah, I got you, man. Football, of course, of the other variety. Listen, you know who's never won the SEC? You know who's never won the Big 12? You know who's never won the Big 10? Netherlands. They don't even know what to call themselves. Are they the Dutch? Are they Netherlands? Who knows? All I know is they're losing this weekend in the round of 16 to Team USA, baby.
Can we start a group?
That's my one big thing.
That is amazing.
That's not the chant. It's I believe. That's the chant. But anyway.
Was that? One more time?
I believe that we will win. All right, I'm done. That's
you
my
brought soccer in the rankings reaction.
No, it's football.
No, it's soccer.
It's football. Have you seen that commercial? It's a really good one.
Soccer.
Anyways.
I learned everything I need to know about soccer from Ted Lasso. Go ahead.
Okay, so for me, it's not that much different than mine from last week. AJ, you can make whatever faces you want to make. But I'm cheering for USC because
I'm with that.
Breaking news. Still a USC fan. That's a wonderfully played topic, Bob.
It's actually not breaking news. I just feel like I want them to win the Pac-12. I want to see them in the CFP. So I'm just rooting for USC right now.
Okay. That's a big thing. I'll end with the big thing about this committee this week because Boo Corrigan is kind enough to give us his time every week. And every week he tells us it's not about whatever they thought last week. It's a reimagined sculpture every single week. If I want to buy that, then somebody explain to me why Michigan's number 2. Because as much as all year I've been telling you Georgia's the best team in the country, and I have believed that all year, Georgia has had to survive some tough games along the way. Michigan went out and absolutely whipped the snot out of the number 2 team in the country at the time, right? Like, they didn't go out and win. They dominated, to AJ's point. Without their best player on a road game, Michigan went out and answered every question, and they did it convincingly. If that doesn't make you number 1, when you win that way, right now, I might even buy that Georgia's a better football team.
Oh,
but
can I say something about this?
Dude,
I know we don't look ahead, but maybe they don't have Michigan number 1 because they currently have Ohio State at number 5. And if they put Michigan number 1, would they have to put OSU at number 4?
I mean, they don't look ahead.
Listen. Well, I mean, let's don't get too crazy.
I'm just saying. If they put Michigan at number 1.
They had Tennessee as their first number 1 ranking of the year, and Georgia went out and blew Tennessee straight out of the stadium, too. And it could have been a lot worse if it didn't start raining a ton in the second half of that game.
The committee is smart, and I feel like they know that an OSU loss to Michigan, if they put them at number 1, and there's still a path for OSU to get in, the one loss that they have, even though it was a blowout against the number 1 team in the country, I feel like that looks a lot better. You know how we talk about good losses?
Yeah.
So that's a really good loss then in that situation.
Yeah, but we can't act like Michigan's won every game by big this year.
No, but
I mean,
I'm just looking
survived
ahead
versus
to like
Illinois.
I'm just looking ahead to how the committee can put things together and say if Michigan is number 1, let's just say we get chaos. Let's say TSU. Let's say TCU loses. Let's say USC loses. If they have an Ohio State team that lost to the number 1 team in the country and that's their best loss, it was just a bad day for them. Why wouldn't they have a path into the playoffs? So I feel like putting Michigan at number 2 allows them to say, well, Ohio State is not in the playoff because they had a really bad loss to the number 2 team in the country.
Christine, the biggest question is who do you root for next week after USC loses?
I'm talking about the committee.
No. That's what we should do for our way more important rankings.
I'm not talking about me.
I nominated our way more important rankings for the last show. Be Christine's fandom.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Christine's favorite
who do
teams.
you go to when USC loses the Pac-12 championship? Who do you start rooting for
I would
now?
still root for the USC. I'm rooting for USC.
What team is left from the Big 12? That's where she goes to next.
We got to move. We got to move along. We got to move along to more important rankings. We always start to end the show with more important rankings. Gary, I believe you got to do this. What is it?
Yeah, what a blessing that this is the first time I've been able to sit with you legends.
Welcome.
And I get to give, because it's topical and timely, your top 6 excuses to avoid holiday gatherings and functions.
Okay.
All right, because there's a lot of invites going out this time of year, and sometimes you might not want to go.
I didn't see your text. I feel seen on
you
that
might
one.
not see the text, so it's like
sometimes I don't.
No, I really don't. I mean, text messages all the time.
Yeah, okay. So I'm saying, like, this is a built-in excuse and one that collectively, as a foursome, we've all agreed.
I have 400 unread texts right now, so it could have been me.
Brag about it. Okay, what about 5? This is for most of us, right?
Yeah,
like,
I always work on the holidays.
Pretty sure I got to work.
Yeah.
Or AJ, for you, pretty sure I got to work. Or I'm pretty sure the kids got a game. Sorry, got to take the kids to practice.
What's this in for?
I have this thing.
I got to go play golf.
Playing golf.
I have this thing. Oh, playing golf is
everybody knows that it's a new sport I'm picking up, and I got to keep it. I got to keep the main thing the main thing.
Okay.
In Connecticut?
Yeah, dude. As long as there's not snow on the ground.
No, that's how you know it's a lie.
What's at number 3? Okay, this is very true. So I passed out. I'm tired. I was slumped. The work hours are getting to me. The kids are running me ragged. AJ, right?
I mean, Gary hosts the early morning Sports Center, so there's at least 3 times a week where you can text him any time of the day. He's out.
From Thursday night to Monday morning, I'm MIA. Who's going to be there? That's a pre-screen question. I'm like, TSA pre-check, baby. Hey, who's going to be there?
Yeah.
If you ask me who's going to be there, I know you're not coming, and I also know you're that person. The only answer to who's going to be there is your mom.
Oh, and this one, sorry, I can't find somebody to watch my dog. Gary, I asked you to go to lunch. Well, still, I can't find somebody to watch my dog.
It's literally a 2-hour event. You're like, who's going to watch Homie?
Let me just, on national TV, say anytime you want to bring Homie over and she can just hang out at my place, I'll watch Homie anytime.
Can I bring Louie?
Yeah, of course.
Okay,
Let's have like a whole party.
Is that the bald cap?
Yes.
Yes.
Look at Homie. Wait, Homie got in the show before Annabelle did? Oh, there's going to be some fighting around here.
Yeah, that's pretty rude.
I mean, I got to go home and look Annabelle in the face and tell her why another dog got on this.
Is that a golden doodle?
You know it. Are you team golden doodle, AJ?
Yeah, I'm about to surprise my wife with a petite golden doodle.
Well, now that she's watching the show, man. Oh, what are you doing?
She's busy with the kids.
Dude, I was going to say, oh my goodness.
Yes.
He's AJ McCarron. He's Gary Striewski. She's Christine Williamson. I'm Jason Fitz. We got to go. Come back. Hang out with us on Sunday for the last of the rankings reactions.
He said he's bringing the ring next week.
It's been rankings reactions presented by Cheez-It.
Yeah, dude. AJ, do it. Hell yeah. Bring the puppy, too.